The massive Galactic Coalition vessel named Starlight Voyager slowed as it approached the Vorkan homeworld. Through the wide observation window, Lieutenant Kate Miller watched the planet grow larger. It was a world of deep greens and blues. Beautiful but holding unknown dangers. Kate was the only human on the diplomatic team. At 5'8" with auburn hair pulled back in a tight bun, she stood out among her alien colleagues. While the others chatted nervously about the upcoming meeting, Kate remained quiet, studying the mission briefing one last time. "Nervous, Lieutenant?" asked Ambassador Roque, his blue skin crinkling around his eyes. "Prepared," Kate replied with a small smile. "First contact situations are always delicate." "The Vorkans have a reputation," Roque said, lowering his voice. "They call themselves apex predators of the galaxy. Their strength and speed are remarkable, and they've conquered 3 neighboring systems in the past decade." Kate nodded. "That's why we're here. Diplomacy before things get worse." The Starlight Voyager landed at the designated coordinates. The diplomatic team, consisting of 7 representatives from different coalition planets, gathered at the exit ramp. Kate checked her appearance one last time. Her dark blue uniform was spotless. Medals from her military service positioned perfectly on her chest. The ramp lowered with a soft hiss, revealing a delegation of Vorkans waiting on the landing pad. Kate took in their appearance with a trained eye. They stood nearly 7 feet tall on powerful hind legs. Their bodies were covered in thick, gray fur with patterns of darker stripes. Their faces resembled earth wolves with long snouts filled with sharp teeth and alert, pointed ears. Their hands ended in retractable claws that gleamed in the sunlight. Ambassador Roque stepped forward first, followed by the rest of the team, with Kate near the back. The tallest Vorkan, wearing ornate armor decorated with symbols of what appeared to be battle victories, stepped forward to meet them. "I am Zarak, pack leader of the Northern Plains and representative of Emperor Vox," he announced, his voice deep and rumbling. "Welcome to Vorka Prime." Roque began the formal greeting protocol, but Kate noticed how Zarak's amber eyes moved over each member of their team, assessing them as if they were prey. When his gaze landed on her, his ear twitched and his mouth curled into what could only be described as a smirk. The delegation was escorted to a large stone building with high ceilings and walls decorated with weapons and hunting trophies. The room they entered had a long table with chairs on one side for the coalition representatives and larger, throne-like seats on the other for the VORCHANs. As they sat down, Zarak spoke directly to Kate. "We have heard of humans but never met. 1. You are smaller than I expected." Kate met his gaze steadily. "We come in many sizes." "But no natural weapons," he observed, casually extending and retracting his claws. "No fangs, no claws. How did such a species survive to reach the stars?" "We adapted," Kate replied simply. Zarak laughed, a harsh barking sound that made some of the coalition representatives flinch. "Adaptation is the excuse of prey, not predators." Ambassador Roque cleared his throat. "We've come to discuss peaceful relations between the Coalition and the Vorkan Empire. Our intelligence suggests your forces are preparing to move into the Kelvin sector, which borders Coalition space." "The Kelvin sector has resources we need," Zarak stated flatly. "The beings there are weak. They will serve a better purpose under our protection." "The Coalition proposes a trade agreement instead," Roque said, motioning to another delegate who placed a datapad on the table. "We can provide the resources you need without conflict." Zarak barely glanced at the pad. "And what would the mighty Coalition ask in return? That we stay within our borders? That we deny our nature as conquerors?" The discussions continued for hours. Kate spoke little, but observed everything. How the Vorkans communicated with subtle ear movements, how they deferred to Zarak, how they seemed to respect only shows of strength or aggression. When the Coalition team proposed a non-aggression pact, Zarak stood up suddenly, towering over the table. "Enough pleasantries. If the Coalition wishes our cooperation, you will demonstrate proper respect." "We've shown nothing but respect," Roque protested. "Words are wind," Zarak growled. "Respect is shown through tribute. The Vorkan Empire will consider your proposals." If the Coalition surrenders claim to 3-star systems along our border, the room fell silent. Finally, Kate spoke up. The Coalition doesn't surrender territory as a prerequisite for talks. Zarek's eyes locked onto hers and his fur bristled. The soft creature speaks. Tell me, human, what do you know of power? Your kind hides behind technology and words because your bodies are weak. On my world, you would not survive a single night. We're not on your world, Kate replied evenly. We're here as equals to discuss mutual interests. Equals? Zarek barked a laugh and looked to his pack members, who joined in the mocking laughter. There are no equals to Vorkans. There are only those who submit and those who are forced to submit. He walked around the table, deliberately looming over Kate. Up close, his size was even more imposing, and his musk, a mix of forest and something metallic like blood, filled her nostrils. Your species is barely worth conquering, he said, leaning down to speak directly to her. No challenge, no sport like hunting infant prey. Kate didn't flinch. She maintained eye contact, which seemed to surprise him. This meeting is over, Zarek announced, straightening up. You will all remain as our honored guests until your governments reconsider our generous offer. That's imprisonment, Roke protested. A violation of diplomatic protocol. Call it what you wish, Zarek replied. We call it hospitality. You will be treated well, fed our finest foods, given comfortable quarters, but you will not leave until we have agreement. Armed Vorkans entered the room, their weapons not quite pointed at the delegation but clearly ready. This is a mistake, Kate said quietly. Zarek smiled, showing his full set of fangs. The mistake, little human, was sending such weak representatives to face the apex predators of the galaxy. The Coalition team was escorted from the meeting hall to a separate building. The rooms were indeed luxurious, with soft beds, entertainment systems, and large windows with energy fields that prevented escape. Guards were posted at every exit dot as night fell on Vorka Prime. The delegation gathered in the common area of their gilded prison to discuss options. While the others argued about contacting the Coalition for rescue, Kate stood by the window, watching the 3 moons rise over the alien landscape. She had spent her life understanding predators. Growing up in Montana, she had tracked wolves and bears. In her military years, she had studied the tactics of enemies across dozens of worlds. The Vorkans were dangerous, but they had made a critical error. They had underestimated her. They had underestimated humans, and that was going to be their downfall. 3 days passed in their luxurious prison. The Coalition delegates were treated well, as Zarek had promised. They received 3 meals a day of rich, cooked meats and strange fruits. Their rooms were comfortable, but they remained captives. Kate spent these days watching and learning. She observed the guards, noting their rotation schedules and behavior patterns. 6 guards in total, changing shifts every 8 hours. They were always alert at the beginning of their shifts, but grew less attentive by the end. She also studied the Vorkans themselves, how they moved, how they communicated, how they settled minor disagreements. Twice she witnessed guards arguing over something, and both times the dispute ended with a display of teeth and claws until one backed down. Hierarchy was everything to them. On the morning of the 4th day, Kate began her usual exercise routine. The guards had grown used to seeing her perform stretches, push-ups, and other movements in the common area. They often watched with amusement, sometimes making comments in their own language that made the other guards laugh. "Why do you bother?" asked Dr. Sam Johnson, the Coalition's cultural expert. He was a thin man with sandy hair and tired eyes. "Keeping fit won't help us escape." Kate continued her plank position, her body perfectly straight. "It helps me think," she said, "and I never said anything about escape." Sam sat down near her. "The Coalition will send a rescue team once they realize we've been detained." "And risk us starting a war?" Kate lowered herself to the floor and sat cross-legged. "We need another solution." Later that day, the door to their quarters slid open. Zarek entered, flanked by 2 lieutenants. The Vorkan leader looked even larger, in the confined space, his head nearly touching the ceiling. I trust you are finding your stay comfortable, he said, his voice dripping with false concern. Ambassador Roke stepped forward. This detention is illegal under galactic law. We demand to be released immediately, Zarek laughed. Demand? You are in no position to demand anything. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Kate. The human female seems to be taking captivity well. I've heard she exercises daily. Kate met his gaze without speaking. Zarek moved closer to her. Perhaps she thinks she can fight her way out? His pack members snickered. She appears even weaker than the rest of you. Perhaps we should separate her for her own protection. The room fell silent. The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Kate stood slowly, her movements deliberate and calm. In human culture, she said, we have a custom for resolving conflicts. Zarek's ears perked up with interest. Oh, a challenge? Kate said. One that even apex predators might appreciate. The Vorkan's amber eyes narrowed. What sort of challenge? Combat. Kate replied simply, me against you. If I win, you release us and return to diplomatic talks. If you win, we accept your terms without further argument. The other delegates stared at her in shock. Sam stepped forward. Lieutenant Miller, this isn't... Kate raised a hand to silence him. Never taking her eyes off Zarek, the Vorkan leader burst into laughter, showing his full set of fangs. You? Challenge me? He looked at his lieutenants, who joined in the laughter. The tiny human thinks she can fight a Vorkan. Kate waited for the laughter to die down. Are you afraid to accept? The room grew suddenly quiet. Zarek's fur bristled. Along his spine? Afraid? Of you? He leaned down until his face was inches from hers. His breath was hot and smelled of meat. I could tear you apart with one paw. Then you have nothing to lose, Kate said evenly. Unless you think there's a chance I might win. Zarek's eyes flashed with anger, then narrowed with calculation. Very well, human, I accept your challenge. A slow, cruel smile spread across his muzzle. But to make it interesting, you will face me and two of my lieutenants. Krell and Varax. He gestured to the two Vorkans at his side. The coalition delegates erupted in protests, but Kate kept her eyes locked with Zarek's. Fine, she said. 3 against 1. Zarek's smile faltered slightly, as if her confidence confused him. Tomorrow at dawn, you may face us in our combat arena. He turned to leave, then looked back over his shoulder. Your funeral, little human. After... The Vorkans left. The delegation surrounded Kate. Have you lost your mind? Ambassador Roke asked, his blue skin pale with worry. They'll kill you. This is suicide, Sam added. The Vorkans have twice your strength and speed. Kate moved to the window, looking out at the Vorkan city below. Did you read my file before this mission, Sam? Standard Coalition diplomat background, he replied. Why? Did you know I grew up in rural Montana? Kate asked. My father was a wildlife ranger. I tracked predators before I could drive. She turned to face the group. Or that before joining the coalition, I was a Special Forces combat instructor for 6 years? Sam's eyes widened. But even with that background, you're facing 3 Vorkans. They evolved as pack hunters. They have natural weapons we don't, Kate smiled. So did wolves on Earth? But humans became the apex predators there, not wolves. She moved to the center of the room and began a series of stretching exercises that revealed her muscular physique, previously hidden under her loose diplomatic uniform. The Vorkans see us as prey because they've never encountered humans in combat, she explained. They don't understand what we are. She pulled out her wrist device and projected footage she had secretly recorded of the guards fighting. Look at their combat style, she said. All aggression, no strategy. They rely on strength and intimidation because they've never needed anything else. They've never faced a real threat. Ambassador Roke still looked concerned. What exactly is your plan, Lieutenant? To show them why humans became Earth's apex predators, Kate replied. Not because we're the strongest or fastest, but because we're the most adaptable. She spent the evening preparing. She tore strips from her bedsheets and wrapped them around her hands and feet. She broke off a piece of metal from her bed frame. and sharpened it against the stone floor when the guards weren't looking. As night fell, Sam came to sit beside her. "I still think this is a mistake," he said. "But if anyone could pull this off, it would be you." Kate looked at the stars visible through the window. "The Vorkans think physical strength is everything. That's their weakness. And what's your strength?" Sam asked. Kate turned to him with a determined smile. "They're about to find out." That night, while the others slept fitfully, Kate lay awake, mentally rehearsing tomorrow's fight. She wasn't afraid. She had faced worse odds before. The Vorkans were stronger and faster, yes. But they had never faced a human who knew exactly what she was doing. Dawn would come soon. And with it, a lesson the Vorkans would never forget. Dawn broke over the Vorkan world with a red glow. Kate stood at the window of their quarters, watching as the first light touched the stone buildings of the city. She had slept only 2 hours, but felt alert and focused. Her mind was calm the way it always became before combat. 4 armed guards arrived to escort her to the arena. Kate wore her modified uniform. She had torn off the sleeves for better movement and wrapped her forearms with strips of fabric. Her hair was pulled back tightly, and around her waist she had tied a belt made from bed sheets, holding the sharpened metal piece hidden at her back. "Good luck," Sam whispered as she left. The other delegates looked at her with a mixture of hope and despair. Kate nodded. "See you soon?" She spoke with such confidence that some of them actually believed her. The guards led her through the winding streets of the Vorkan city. Curious onlookers watched as she passed, some pointing and whispering. Word of the challenge had spread quickly. The arena was a large circular pit surrounded by stone seating that rose up in tiers. Already hundreds of Vorkans filled the seats, their fur creating a sea of gray and black. Their excited barks and growls echoed off the stone walls. Kate was led to an entrance on one side of the arena. The ground was packed dirt with patches of sand. Several large rocks and wooden posts were positioned around the space, creating obstacles and terrain features. Kate scanned the area, mentally noting each one. A loud horn sounded, and the crowd grew quiet. From the opposite side of the arena, 3 Vorkans entered. In the center walked Zarek, his gray fur adorned with red markings. To his left was a slightly smaller Vorkan with black stripes, Krell. To his right was Varax, the largest of the 3, with a scar running down his muzzle. All 3 wore minimal armor, just enough to protect vital areas, while allowing full movement. Kate stepped forward into the arena. The contrast between her and the Vorkans was striking. She was half their size, with no visible weapons or natural defenses. The crowd began to laugh and call out in their language. Kate didn't need a translator to understand the mockery. Zarek spread his arms wide, addressing the crowd. "Today we show this human the true meaning of power. Today she learns why Vorkans are the apex predators of the galaxy." The crowd roared their approval. When they quieted, Zarek turned to Kate. "Any last words, human?" he asked, flexing his claws. Kate looked directly at him. "Just one question," she replied, her voice carrying across the arena. "Have you ever heard why humans became the apex predators of Earth?" Before Zarek could respond, a horn sounded again, signaling the start of the combat. Krell immediately charged at Kate, claws extended, mouth open in a roar. Kate waited until the last possible second, then moved, not away but toward him, ducking under his swinging arm and driving her elbow hard into his solar plexus. Krell gasped as the air left his lungs. Kate spun behind him, kicked the back of his knee, and as he dropped, wrapped her arm around his throat in a precise chokehold. The crowd fell silent in shock. Krell struggled, but Kate had positioned herself perfectly to avoid his claws. His struggles grew weaker as the blood flow to his brain was restricted. Within seconds he went limp. Kate released him and stepped back. Krell wasn't dead, just unconscious. The entire exchange had taken less than 10 seconds. Varax snarled and circled more cautiously. He had seen what happened to Krell and wouldn't make the same mistake. Kate kept her eyes on both him and Zarek, who watched with narrowed eyes. "Humans don't have claws," Kate called out, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "So we learned to use our environment." She backed up toward one of the wooden posts. Vorox followed, thinking he was cornering her. When he lunged, Kate ducked and rolled. Vorox's claws embedded in the wooden post. In the split second it took him to free himself, Kate grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into his eyes. Vorox howled in pain and anger, swiping blindly. Kate dodged his wild swings and moved in close. She delivered precise strikes to vulnerable points, throat, kidneys, joints. Each hit was calculated to cause maximum pain with minimum force. We studied anatomy, Kate continued, addressing the stunned crowd as much as her opponents. We learned where every creature is vulnerable. Vorox managed to catch her with a glancing blow, his claws tearing through the fabric on her arm and drawing blood. Kate didn't flinch. She used his momentum against him, grabbing his arm and using a joint lock that forced him to the ground. We learned that bigger doesn't always mean better, she said, applying pressure to his wrist until the bones cracked. Vorox howled in pain. Kate finished him with a knockout blow to the temple. 2 down. She turned to face Zarek, who no longer looked amused. His fur was standing on end, and his amber eyes burned with fury and disbelief. "What are you?" he growled. "I told you," Kate replied calmly, despite the blood running down her arm. "An apex predator," Zarek circled her slowly. "Your pack isn't here to help you. You stand alone." "Humans don't need a pack to be dangerous," Kate said. "We carry our strength inside us." Zarek lunged with incredible speed. Kate barely avoided his first strike, but his second caught her across the back, tearing her uniform and skin. She rolled away, coming up near one of the large rocks. Pain flared across her back, but she pushed it aside. The Vorkan leader pressed his advantage, driving Kate back with a flurry of swipes and slashes. She defended and dodged, but couldn't find an opening to counterattack. Zarek was far more skilled than his lieutenants. "You are prey," Zarek snarled. No matter how clever, prey always falls to predators in the end. Kate's back hit another wooden post. She was cornered. Zarek smiled triumphantly and lunged for the kill. In that moment, Kate pulled the sharpened metal piece from her belt and drove it into the post beside her. Zarek's momentum carried him forward. As he reached for her, his arm caught on the makeshift hook. The metal tore through his flesh, and he howled in pain. Kate slipped past him, spun, and drove her knee into his wounded arm. The crowd gasped as their leader stumbled to one knee. "Humans don't just adapt," Kate said, breathing hard but still in control. "We plan, we create, we turn weakness into strength." Zarek rose, cradling his injured arm. Blood matted his fur, but his eyes showed no surrender. With a roar that shook the arena, he charged at Kate one final time. The human stood her ground, watching his approach with focused intensity. At the last possible moment, she moved, not away, but into his attack, slipping past his guard and striking with precision at the base of his throat. Zarek's momentum carried him forward a few more steps. Then he collapsed, gasping for air, his body shaking with the effort to breathe. Kate stood over him, her own blood mixing with his on the arena floor. The crowd was completely silent. The silence in the arena lasted only a few heartbeats before it erupted into chaos. Vorkans stood from their seats, some roaring in anger, others barking questions at each other. Many simply stared in disbelief at the scene below, their mighty pack leader on his knees before a human female half his size. Kate remained standing over Zarek, her chest rising and falling with her controlled breathing. Blood from the claw marks on her back and arm dripped onto the dirt, but her face showed no pain. She watched as Zarek struggled to regain his breath, her eyes alert for any sign that he might attack again. Medical attendants rushed into the arena toward the fallen Vorkans. Kate stepped back, allowing them to reach Zarek, but kept her guard up. The crowd's reaction was unpredictable. She might have won the challenge, but she was still alone in an arena surrounded by hundreds of potential enemies. Zarek waved away the medical help. With obvious effort, he pushed himself up to his feet. Blood soaked the fur of his right arm where Kate's makeshift weapon had torn through it. He swayed slightly but held himself upright, facing Kate with newfound respect in his amber eyes. "You fight ... well, for prey," he managed to say between labored breaths. Not prey, Kate replied. Different predator. Zarek studied her for a long moment. The arena had quieted again, everyone waiting to hear his next words. By Vorkan tradition, he had been defeated in fair combat. His response now would determine how the rest of his pack viewed both him and the human who had bested him. The human has won the challenge, Zarek finally announced, his voice carrying across the arena despite his injuries. As agreed, the coalition. Delegates will be released, a murmur ran through the crowd. Some Vorkans growled their disapproval, but none challenged Zarek's decision openly. And the diplomatic talks? Kate asked, holding her ground. Zarek's mouth twisted in what might have been a grimace or a smile. We'll resume tomorrow. With new ... considerations, he turned to address the crowd. Today we have witnessed something unprecedented. A human without fangs or claws has defeated 3 Vorkan warriors using only her skill and mind. He looked back at Kate. There is more to strength than teeth and claws. This is a lesson we would do well to remember. With that, Zarek bowed his head slightly to Kate, an acknowledgement of her victory, before turning and limping from the arena, refusing any help despite his injuries. Pride, Kate noted, was as important to Vorkans as strength. Guards approached Kate, but their demeanor had changed. There was no mockery now, only cautious respect. They escorted her back to the quarters where the coalition delegates were being held when she entered. The other delegates rushed to her, their faces showing a mixture of disbelief and joy. You're alive, Sam exclaimed, helping her to a seat. When we heard the crowd roaring, we feared the worst. What happened? Ambassador Roke asked, his blue skin flushed with excitement. Are we free to go? Kate winced as she sat down. The adrenaline was wearing off, and her wounds were beginning to throb painfully. Yes, we're free. And the diplomatic talks will resume tomorrow. How? Another delegate asked. How did you defeat 3 Vorkans? Kate gave a tired smile. I showed them what humans are capable of. A Vorkan doctor was permitted to enter their quarters to treat Kate's wounds. The doctor worked silently, cleaning the deep claw marks and applying a healing gel that smelled of herbs and minerals. The cuts would leave scars, but there would be no permanent damage. As the doctor worked, Kate asked, Will Zarek recover? The doctor glanced up, surprised by the question. Yes, his physical wounds are not severe, his pride, however... The doctor didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. He fought well, Kate said. He's a worthy leader. The doctor's ears twitched in what Kate was learning to recognize as a sign of interest. You speak with respect of the one who wished to harm you? Respect for a worthy opponent isn't weakness, Kate replied. Where I come from, how you treat your enemies says as much about you as how you treat your friends. The doctor finished, bandaging her wounds, and left without another word. But Kate could tell her response had made an impression. That evening, a messenger arrived with formal notice that the delegation was free to return to their ship. They were also invited to resume diplomatic talks the following day at the Grand Hall, a more prestigious location than their previous meeting place. As the delegates gathered their belongings, excited to leave their luxurious prison, Kate remained thoughtful. The victory in the arena had changed things, but their mission was far from complete. Now came the harder part, turning that victory into lasting peace. Will you be able to attend the talks tomorrow? Sam asked her, eyeing her bandages with concern. I wouldn't miss it, Kate replied. Today was just the beginning. The walk back to the Starlight Voyager was very different from their arrival. Vorkans lined the streets watching the delegation pass. There was no mockery now, no laughter or sneers. Instead, the aliens watched in silence, their eyes following Kate with particular intensity. Word of her victory had spread quickly through the city. Some Vorkans placed their hands over their hearts as she passed, a gesture of respect among their kind. Others simply stared, reassessing everything they had believed about humans. Back aboard the ship, Kate finally allowed herself to relax. The medical officer insisted on examining her wounds and was impressed by the Vorkan doctor's treatment. You'll have some impressive scars, the officer told her. But everything looks clean and is healing well, Kate nodded. Scars were nothing new to her. Each told a story, a lesson learned, a battle survived. Later, as she stood by the observation window looking out at the Vorkan city lit by its 3 moons, Ambassador Roke joined her. "The Coalition Council has been updated on our situation," he said. "They're pleased with the outcome, but concerned about your methods." Kate raised an eyebrow. "My methods got us released without starting a war," Roke smiled. "Exactly what I told them." He paused, looking out at the alien world. "The Vorkans respect strength. Without your demonstration today, they would never have taken our diplomatic efforts seriously." "They respect more than just physical strength," Kate said. "They're learning that now, tomorrow at the talks, we need to show them that cooperation can make both our peoples stronger." Roke nodded. "You've given us an opening. We won't waste it." He turned to leave, then added, "You know, there are already stories spreading among the Vorkans about you." "They're calling you the small giant?" Kate smiled. "Let's hope they remember the lesson behind the story." As night fell over the alien world, Kate knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but something fundamental had changed. The Vorkans had seen what a single human could do. Now they would learn what humans and Vorkans could accomplish. Together, the real victory wasn't in the arena. It would be at the diplomatic table, where true strength would be measured not in blood spilled, but in peace achieved. Morning came quickly on the Vorkan world. Kate rose early, testing her injured body. The wounds still hurt, but the Vorkan medicine had worked well. She could move without too much pain. She dressed in a fresh uniform, this one with special reinforcements at the forearms and back, a precaution. The ship's quartermaster had insisted on the coalition delegation prepared for the diplomatic talks with renewed energy. They had been given a second chance, and they intended to make the most of it. Kate joined them in the briefing room as Ambassador Roke outlined their strategy. "We need to build on yesterday's events," Roke said. "The Vorkans respect strength, but Kate has shown them a different kind of strength. Now we need to show them how our different strengths can work together." Kate nodded in agreement. "They're pack hunters by nature. They understand the value of cooperation within their own groups. We just need to expand their definition of what constitutes a pack." The delegation traveled to the Grand Hall in the center of the Vorkan city. Unlike their previous meeting place, this building was filled with artwork and historical displays showing great moments in Vorkan history. Most depicted hunts or battles, but some showed construction projects and scientific achievements. Inside the main chamber, a large circular table had been prepared. This was different from their previous meeting, where the two sides had sat apart from each other. The circular arrangement suggested equality, a promising sign. Zarek entered with several other Vorkans. His wounded arm was wrapped in bandages, but he moved with confidence. Behind him came Krell and Varax, both showing signs of their defeat but standing tall. Kate caught Varax's eye, and he gave her a nod of acknowledgement. Not friendly but respectful. "Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Coalition," Zarek said formally. "We gather today to discuss matters of mutual interest between our peoples." The tone was markedly different from their first meeting. No mockery, no posturing. Kate took her seat alongside the other delegates directly across from Zarek. "Before we begin," Zarek said, looking directly at Kate, "I wish to acknowledge yesterday's events. The human Lieutenant Miller demonstrated qualities that we Vorkans value: courage, skill, and adaptability." He turned to address the whole delegation. "It has caused us to reconsider some of our assumptions about your species and your coalition." Ambassador Roke inclined his head. "We appreciate your willingness to resume these talks. We believe there is much our peoples can learn from each other." The discussions began in earnest. The Vorkans still needed resources from the Kelvin sector, but now they were open to trade agreements rather than conquest. The coalition offered technological assistance with agriculture and mining that would give the Vorkans what they needed without taking territory. During a brief recess, Kate found herself approached by Varax, the largest of Zarak's lieutenants. "Your fighting style," he said, his deep voice rumbling. "I have never seen its like. How did you defeat me so easily?" Kate considered her answer carefully. Humans don't have natural weapons like you do. We had to develop fighting techniques that use leverage and precision instead of raw strength. Vorox's ears twitched with interest. Could such techniques be taught to Vorkans? With some adaptations, yes, Kate replied. Your natural abilities would actually enhance many of the moves? Interesting, Vorox said. He seemed about to say more when they were called back to the table. As the talks continued, Kate noticed a pattern. The Vorkans would start with aggressive demands, but, unlike before, they were now willing to back down when the coalition offered reasonable alternatives. Progress was being made step by step during the afternoon session. A new topic arose, the possibility of a mutual defense pact. This was unexpected but welcome. The Vorkans, it seemed, had realized that having the coalition as allies would be more beneficial than having them as enemies. There are threats in this galaxy that neither of us can face alone, Zarek said. Species that would see both our worlds conquered. Kate spoke up. On Earth, different predator species sometimes form unlikely alliances when facing common dangers. They set aside their territorial disputes to deal with the greater threat. Zarek's amber eyes fixed on her. Yes, exactly this. He turned to the other delegates. Your coalition has technologies we lack. We have warriors and resources you could use. Together, we would be stronger than either alone. By the end of the day, the framework for a historic agreement had been established. The Vorkan Empire would not expand into coalition space. Instead, they would become trading partners and potential military allies. In return, the coalition would help the Vorkans develop their technology and provide access to needed resources. As the meeting concluded, Zarek approached Kate privately. You could have killed me in the arena, he said quietly. Why didn't you? Kate met his gaze. Killing you wouldn't have served any purpose. It would have created a martyr, not peace. Zarek studied her face. Among Vorkans, showing mercy is rare. Some see it as weakness. And what do you see it as? Kate asked. I am reconsidering many things, Zarek admitted. Your victory was not just in defeating us physically. It was in showing us a different way to be strong. He extended his hand in the human gesture of a handshake that he must have learned from observation. Kate took his hand, careful of his claws. His grip was firm but controlled. My pack would be honored if you would share a meal with us tonight, Zarek said. A tradition among allies, Kate smiled. I would be honored. That evening, the coalition delegation joined the Vorkan leaders for a feast. The atmosphere was cautious but hopeful. Cultural attaches from both sides worked to explain customs and prevent misunderstandings. Laughter occasionally broke the tension, especially when the humans tried to pronounce Vorkan words. As Kate watched the two groups beginning to connect, she felt a sense of accomplishment greater than any she had experienced in battle. This was why she had joined the diplomatic corps, to build bridges between different species, to find common ground where others saw only conflict. Later, as the three moons rose over the Vorkan world, Kate stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Ambassador Roke joined her. The council is impressed, he said. In 3 days, you've accomplished what our analysts thought would take years. Kate shook her head. All I did was show them who we really are. Humans aren't just smart or adaptable. We're at our best when we're connecting with others, finding ways to turn potential enemies into allies. The Vorkan educational minister has already requested permission to send some of their young to coalition academies, Roke said, and several of our xenobiologists are eager to study here. This could be the beginning of a powerful alliance. Kate nodded, watching the lights of the alien city below. From potential imprisonment to burgeoning alliance in just a few days. It wasn't the first time humans had turned adversity into opportunity, and it wouldn't be the last. Word would spread through the galaxy. The species that had no claws or fangs, no natural armor or venom, had stood against the mighty Vorkans and emerged victorious, not just through combat, but through connection. The apex predator had mocked the human. She had crushed his pack and ego in minutes. But more importantly, she had shown him a better way forward, together.